in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. Just realized I didn't have a microphone in front of my face. Hello. God, the clock's in this place. I got 8:57 on one and 10:01 on another. What do you think might be right? 10:01's closer. 10:01 is, yeah, okay. Not that it necessarily is when you are listening to it, although you who are listening to it now, yes, you are in real time. It's a beautiful late August day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the year of our Lord, 2012, with the Republicans ensconced in almost sunny Tampa, I understand. Well, it's not raining there, I don't believe. I didn't realize that the McCain's convention got shortened by a day. I don't remember that at all because of another hurricane. I don't remember. Of course, my memory is Swiss cheese, so it's no big deal that I don't remember it, but I thought, I have no recollection that the Republican convention was, thankfully, reduced by a day 4 years ago, and will be reduced for a day, indeed, this week as well. I'm hardly the first to note this, believe me. I mean, we all must have had this thought. Can you imagine if it were the Democrats that were meeting in Florida this week, and this tropical storm, soon to be a hurricane, or is a hurricane, I don't think it is yet, I don't know, is heading at the Democrat convention? Would not a passel of religious yahoos on the right be saying with absolute certainty that it is a sign from God that he is angry at these godless Democrats? Why, of course. I mean, we know this. I haven't heard a peep out of any of them that somehow God is angry at the Republicans. And from what I understand now, 2 years in a row, he's aimed a hurricane at their convention? Why don't they see that sign? Interesting, indeed. Well, I saw somewhere that Donald Trump, here's some good news. Donald Trump has been booted from the shortened agenda. Apparently he was going to give a speech, I'm sure not in prime time, but he's been booted. However, the Donald was in Florida anyway, in Sarasota, to receive a Statesman of the Year award. As I believe her name is Liz Winstead. Yeah, Liz Winstead tweeted that this sentence, she said, should never exist. Donald Trump will receive the Statesman of the Year award. I mean, how is that possible that such a sentence exists in reality? But there it is. Well, so all eyes will be on the Republicans, except because God has so delightfully interfered again with the Republicans' plans this week. The fact of the matter is that if this thing gains strength, as we are told, it probably will over the warm Gulf of Mexico, that it will, if it stays on its current path, will in all likelihood hit New Orleans. I know I don't say that right, but I don't know how to say it. New Orleans. I don't know how they say it. New Orleans. New Orleans. And it's going to smack right into those poor people again on the anniversary, the exact day that Katrina hit. Well, let me tell you, if it hits New Orleans on, I don't know what they're saying, Wednesday or Thursday, the Republicans, who had hoped to be the centerpiece of course, of the nightly news, the attention, all eyes on it, finally television time that their deep-pocketed fellows didn't have to pay for. I mean, it's just free advertising to present themselves in whatever wondrous, rosy-colored way they want. And nobody can take the attention away from them. But as I said, God looks like he's planning on doing just that. Because if he slams into New Orleans on the anniversary of Katrina, there ain't no way that's not going to steal a lot of attention. Looking at weather footage and distressed human beings trying to keep their heads above water and trying to keep their homes in one piece is always better for television than looking at Republicans, right? Conventioneers in general are not necessarily anything you want your eyes to settle on. So, I just find it fascinating, though, that these clear signs, you can't get any clearer signs of God's indignation, yea, verily, rage. Targeted. This hurricane's going to spawn tornadoes. It's going to wreak havoc. 12 inches of rain, winds, unbelievable power of God's wrath. Focused where? On Republicans, red states all, and taking attention away from the Republicans in their campaign week, in their convention week. I love it. Where's Pat Robertson when you need him to explain meteorological events? He always seems to be available when, it suits his purposes, I guess. Oh, Lord. Isaac, the Old Testament Isaac, God's second patriarch. Jeez. Okay, enough. I, for one, I'm just thrilled because I feel sometimes because of this job that I have to subject myself to the convention. But now, my Monday night has been freed. And I only now am staring down the maw of 3 nights of horror. So we've all been spared somewhat up to this point. I just have to throw this in here since I've been talking so much about God, and then meteorology, of course, is science. And the two meet up often, it seems, in our political discourse these days, which is odd if you think about it. But, of course, we're immersed in it, so it's hard to think about in a sort of a long-viewed way. But that religion and science have become such a big part of our political discourse. It's too bad. Anyway, I came upon this, and maybe some of you saw this, but this just blows me away, what some scientists do and how the heck they measure such things. Here is something. This is what kind of a scientist would this be? I don't even know. You know how when dogs shake water off them? You know, shake, and the water does just like fly off. This is something we can't do. Dogs can. I've seen cats do it. I've seen, in fact, I guess most animals do it. But apparently dogs are unparalleled in their water shaking abilities. A Dr. David Hu of some biolocomotion Institute. Okay, I get it. Biolocomotion. Bio and locomotion, this makes sense. Institute at Georgia Tech. They have scientists in Georgia? Jeez. Anyway, he finds that there is a specific frequency of shaking that has to be reached if a dog is to generate enough force, I guess this makes sense, to overcome the surface tension that holds water to its fur. So you've got the surface tension holding water to its fur, and for the dog to start its back and forthing to propel that water off its fur, it obviously has to reach a specific frequency to generate enough force to do so. Okay, even I understand that. But get this. Here's what Dr. Hu has found out. Furry creatures can generate forces of between 10 and 70 times that of gravity while they're doing their thing. In fact, the force that they unleash trying to rid their fur of water sometimes is so intense, 70 times the force of gravity, that they shut their eyes to prevent damage to their eyes, which they would be damaged, I guess, at that force. Their vision might go. Large dogs can shed 70% of water from their fur in a mere 4 seconds. 70% of the water in 4 seconds by shaking at about 4.3 times per second. You can't do that. How many did I do? Oh, maybe I did. 4.3 shakes per second. Kangaroos, on the other hand, do you believe this guy, what? He had got a kangaroo. He had to get more than one kangaroo because you had to do a range of kangaroos to find out the kangaroo average for shaking. What is the point of this stuff? Here's where I, sound like one of those people who, well, I think some of this, I don't understand what it would be used for, but who am I? Kangaroos shake at just 5 times per second. Rats shake 27 times per second. Well, I have never in my life had a sense of awe at a rat, but that 27 times per second. What a sight that must be. Wow. Anyway, so there's some of the on the scientific. Ooh, and here's another God thing. Oh, gosh. So I got a text. I get it mixed up. I got a text from my son Saturday saying that NBC or CBS, one of the networks, had reported that Neil Young had died.
Oh my God, yeah.
You heard that, Jess, too? Who said? NBC reported Neil Young had died. And I, texted back, OMG, oh my God. And then I thought for a minute, and then I went to the TV looking for stuff about Neil Young dying in my Twitter account, and I saw nothing. Yeah, Neil Armstrong, yes, I'd seen that earlier. And then I thought, good God, could he have gotten them mixed up? So I texted back, Neil Armstrong died. And then he texted back, yeah, right. That was why I told you that CBS reported or NBC reported. How did they do that? Did just one person say? I can't even imagine. Okay, so I just wanted to get back to Neil Armstrong, who described himself as a short sleeve wearing plastic pocket protector nerd. I mean, and he was. I mean, he totally was. But he showed that the classic nerd can be one hell of a cool customer with extraordinary courage. He did not want to talk about it ever. He didn't want to have anything to do with any of it. To him, it was just his job, this and that, blah, blah, blah. He didn't wax poetic. But get this. Somebody said that, in fact, he was declared dead at 3:03 Eastern Standard Time. Well, of course, whoever figured this out ran to their Bible and found in Genesis 3:3 this. God then created the moon to oppose the sun. Ooh! Isn't that cool?
That's super cool.
God then created the moon. That's 3:3 Genesis. The Bible 3:03. Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon, shuffled off his mortal coil, as I believe Shakespeare would have it. Listen, guys, I'm going to be all over the boards today because I've got a lot of things on my mind, a lot of things that passed my, my purview over the last 2.5 days since I last spoke to you. And so I'm just going to keep throwing them out here. If anybody wants to take up a subject, let me know. You can do that by emailing me. I do check regularly during the program at lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And you can also, of course, call at 412-316-3381. Okay, here's another thought, and I had it, and then Gail Collins, who does a column for the New York Times, she had it too. And this is like one of those things like the hurricane and the Republicans, that a lot of people probably had this same thought, but she has a column, so she takes credit for it. The shooting at the Empire State Building. We now know through surveillance footage that all of the bystanders, and I believe, there were 9 of them, all 9 bystanders were shot by the police. And here is what that said to me. And it also said this to Gail Collins. Now, what does that reality tell you about the gun nut idea that we would all be safer if everybody was packing heat, so that in the event there's some shooter on the loose, as was the case at the Empire State Building, that all of us good citizens could take the shooter down, thus protecting ourselves and all the innocent folks in the environment. You gotta figure that the police, these 2 police officers at the Empire State Building that killed the perp, and in doing so trying to save themselves because he was pointing the gun at them, trying to save themselves, and that was pretty much it. They still managed to also shoot 9 other innocent people. The police in New York are trained. These are guys with guns who are more trained in the handling of those guns in these kinds of situations than your average NRA card-carrying member who's packing concealed heat in half of these United States with probably not even a permit required. So if the very trained New York police officer, when attempting, when a bang, something happens, pulling out his gun, having to shoot, does kill the target, but also, since there were how many bullets flying, he kills the target and also takes down 9 other people, thank God none of whom were killed. So I keep thinking of like the scenario in the movie theater, right, in Colorado. And this thought that these fools have, that the way you safeguard us from these lunatics, did I use lunatics twice? I mean from the serial killers or from the nutcases, well, they're all nuts, is to have everybody armed. Can you imagine the carnage if even 1/3 of the audience in that theater, in the dark, had started shooting? So, of course, this is too, like you don't hear any Republicans talking about the biblical God of, wrathful God, the Isaac God of the Old Testament, making clear his displeasure at the Republicans. You don't hear that from the people who would certainly be saying that if it were the Democrats who were having the convention. You also don't hear all these gun nuts saying, they're strangely quiet about the Empire State Building thing. Because here was a situation where there were guys with guns to take out the perp, just like they say there should be. And these guys happened to even be cops. And they did. They took them down. And 9 other people, too. So I'm just saying, it's interesting that people can't learn from reality. Well, these are the people that have their own reality anyway, but they can't learn from it. They don't see that. They don't draw conclusions there. The reality is, and this is hard for us to accept, for me to accept, is that if you were to poll Americans, I'm not sure how it comes out nationally, but there are huge, huge swaths of this country, if not most of it, that still accept this idea that the NRA promulgates, that we would all be safer if, in these situations, everybody had a gun. If all those students at Virginia Tech had a gun. I think it was my sister who was telling me that there was a university, is it Colorado or something? University that you can have guns in the dorms. And there was some effort on the part of some of the students and or their concerned parents to have a gun-free dorm. Now, to me, that is so unbelievable. You can't even, if there is any group that you would not want to allow guns, it would be 18, 19, 20-year-olds judgment centers of brain still not fully formed, living together, away from home for the first time maybe, anxious, depressed, under great stress, falling in love, maybe getting jilted, all the kinds of heavy emotional, hormonal craziness things that are going on in those young lives, packed together, the testosterone raging, the estrogen raging, and guns? What parent in their right mind would send their child off to such a situation? Oh, dear Lord. So, anyway, okay, those are my first meanderings of the morning. I think we should get a break in here, and we'll be back to ya momentarily.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
Okay, I'm going to repeat my call to you to consider becoming a volunteer with the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council. I have to report this, and I was so thrilled, and it says something about him, that when Tom Sokolowski was here on Thursday and he heard me talking about this, he pulls out his pen while I'm talking and is writing down the number and the website because, as he told me later, he says, that sounds like something I should do. Well, how wonderful. It sounds like something you should do, too, assuming you have the time, because you can read, and you know that the country would be better off if all its citizens could read, too. The problem is that the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council, which does an unbelievably good job with its mission, believe me, literally gives an entire world to hundreds of people a year. The way they do it is one-on-one. So you need one volunteer to change one other human being's life. These are not classes of 10. One-on-one. They can teach you how to do it. That's what they do. They teach you, and then you teach some highly motivated person to read as well. These are adults. Some of them are foreign. Some are people who just didn't get it the first time around, and all they need is you. They're on a waiting list now because there aren't enough. There's a waiting list. You can whittle that down by becoming a teacher. And all I want to say, I'm going to give you the phone number and the website, but one of the volunteers that signed up knew that the slogan there was called Open Up a Life. And what he said was so touching, because after he ended up doing it, he said, I didn't understand that meant my life. It means both lives, indeed. Here's the phone number, 412-393-7600, 393-7600, and you can do it on their website. Check out the website, which is Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council, first letters of all those words, GPLC.org. Give it an eyeball or two and some thought.
Go to BlgBargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, the History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and some of the best restaurants in Pittsburgh. This week, get 50% off tickets to the Pittsburgh Irish Festival. BlgBargains.com. Local deals, local merchants. BlgBargains.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Saw this in USA Today this morning. This is actually worse than I thought. The percentage of American adults who cannot name a single Supreme Court justice. What would you say?
85.
Whoa! Jess just came in with 85%. Can't name one?
I would guess.
You have that little faith in the intelligence of the American population and citizenry?
Yeah.
Well, what a cynic you are. Actually, it's not that bad. However, it is that bad if I were to have said, what percentage of American adults can name one or none? If you add the ones that could come up with one name, then you're into almost 100% territory. I'm not kidding. 63% of American adults cannot name a single Supreme Court justice. Judge Judy, they got no problem. 63%. Okay, and the geniuses in America that can name at least one Supreme Court justice come in at 34%. Oh, at least one. So maybe they want one, two, or three, whatever. Can it name some? At 34%, which if I do my quick bad math, is 97% of adult Americans. Oh, God. 2% refuse to answer the question. I think that's a little like Lance Armstrong saying he wasn't going to contest things anymore. They didn't have the answer. Only 1% of American adults can name all 9. Okay, let me try. I haven't done this myself. Let me try. Because the court does change, you know. Okay, I'm going to do the Republicans first. Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, Alito, Kennedy. That's 5. The 4 remaining ones, the liberals, supposedly, Kagan, Sotomayor, Breyer, Ginsburg. I'm the 1%. I'm the 1%. Oh, I thought I was in the 99. Not on this case. No, I'm the 1. I'm the 1. I'm the 1. Oh, dear. So, speaking of Armstrong, not that I give a damn if you want to know the truth, but George Vesey, who's a really good, I think that's how it's pronounced, I might be wrong, Vexy or Vesey, who writes sports for the New York Times and is a wonderful essayist, said this, among a lot of things, but I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 sentences. He said, ultimately, his lawyers must have told him it's over. And did he do it? Well, let's put it this way. He was the best cyclist of his time in maybe the dirtiest sport in existence. I think that sort of nails it. He probably was the best. If you took the dope out of all of them, he probably would have won. But since they're all on dope, he still wins. Right? Apparently, you cannot compete in that sport without doping. And as Vesey later says, you know, the cyclists who really did not want to dope ended up simply not competing. They went away. You can't. They couldn't compete on this with the dopers. They can't. So they just went away. So, you tell me. Somebody tell me, this is like one of those legal notices that, show up in the paper, a bunch of fine print. But I never saw this one before. It's an audit notice. And let me read to you what it says. Because I found a name on it. Like an idiot this morning, I start looking at these names thinking I might know somebody, even though I didn't know what the hell this was. Here's what it says. The following fiduciaries have filed their accounts in the office of the clerk of the Orphans Court Division. The accounts will be presented to the Orphans Court Division of the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, for confirmation, NISI, N-I-S-I, on September 4th at 9:30 a.m. All parties interested are hereby notified that an audit list will be prepared and the list will be called on September 17th. So then 2 weeks after this first one at 10 o'clock and continue thereafter each day until completed. I don't have a clue what this is. What is that? And it obviously requires publication. But so, like an idiot, I'm going down this list, and guess what name leaps out at me? Cope. Myron. Myron Cope. Hyphen Joseph Gordon. Now, Joe Gordon, guys, I knew both these guys. I think Joe Gordon's still alive, isn't he? Is he dead? Joe Gordon was the PR guy for the Steelers in the forever, this is maybe 60s, 70s, definitely 80s, into the 90s. Joe Gordon. So here's something that says 08 Cope Myron / Joseph Gordon and PNC Bank. What is that? This is me being nosy. I just don't know what this is. And it's none of my business. I think whatever it is none of my business, but obviously, according to law, it is the public's business in that it has to be put out there if anybody is an interested party. I just don't understand what an audit notice is and what this calling of the lists and will continue until I just don't understand what it is. And you know what? Why do I have this feeling and nobody's going to help me out here? Well, heck with you. Okay. I want to get back to that amazing story of the attempted child was abducted. The infant, 3-day-old infant from Magee Women's Hospital. And you know what's interesting is we found out now that the girl, the abductress, scouted around. She looked at West Penn. I don't know if she went over to AG yet. She looked at West Penn Hospital. She looked at another, I forget which, and then she went over to Magee. She was looking at what looks like a place I can do this. And it was Magee. Well, that says something, and Magee is, I'm sure, nervously trying to, keep itself from getting sued for somehow being negligent in its security procedures. But in a story that ran over the weekend, and I know a lot of folks don't necessarily get the Saturday paper, and it is the Saturday paper, I wanted to point out some information that I hadn't seen before that, I don't know, I had a sort of maternal reaction to, and it involves her boyfriend, the abductress's boyfriend, who, like she, is all of 19 years of age. His name is Savon Josie. Now, Savon Josie, according to this, had been wanting to break it off with this lunatic because he found her nuts. And he had met her through Facebook. And when he was going to tell her, hey, this is over as far as I'm concerned, she tells him she's pregnant with his child. And he can't quite believe it because she had told him before that she couldn't have children. But she ended up producing a sonogram picture to show him. And that did it. He thought, oh my God, I'm going to be a father. So get this. This 19-year-old, and I mean, my son is not much older. He's 20. So I know what 19-year-old boys are like, okay? This 19-year-old, seeing the sonogram, what does he do? He thinks, I'm going to be a father. Well, I better step up. Even though this woman's nuts and I was going to break it off, this is my child. So listen to what the guy does. He drops out of technical school and gets a job. He stopped hanging with his buddies. He stopped partying. He took parenting classes. Doesn't it make you... Jess is having the reaction I had. I almost started crying when I read this. He took parenting classes. He took the lunatic who was hoodwinking him shopping for baby clothes. And after this all happened, he said, she played everyone, not just me. She was such a good actor. He tried to see her while she told him she was at Magee having her baby, their baby. He went to Magee, and they told him they didn't have anybody there of that name. He said, well, that's impossible. I just talked to her. And he ends up confused, and he leaves. And he comes back another time and can't get in. And he calls her. He says, what is going on? I want to see my baby. And she's always got a story. Oh, they're this. Oh, it was a C-section, and I'm in. You can't, and blah. And what does he know? So he accepts this. She finally calls him and says, you want to see your baby? Well, they let me out. I'm down at the investment building downtown. And he runs downtown to see his baby. And he's holding his baby. And he says, he's quoted in the paper as saying, we're walking around and people are saying, oh, that baby is so cute. And I'm saying, thank you. He says, I'm holding this stolen baby and thinking it was mine. That's part of the story I hadn't heard, and it breaks your heart. There is a young kid who tried to do the right thing and can you imagine? Yeah, Jess is reacting like me. Yeah, I know. This woman, the havoc she wrought. The good news is that, everybody's where they're supposed to be. The baby's with his parents. She's in jail. But this poor guy, no one's ever going to go and do a follow-up with Save on Josie, who's probably wandering around wondering if he can get back into tech school. He's already missed too much, so he screwed that up. How much money did he lose doing that? Oh, God. Oh. Okay, I have one more police blotter thing that you might not have seen either, which just totally blew me away. I didn't know anything about this case, but it ended, I guess, on Friday. This also has to do with young people, again, behaving like idiots. The first person I'll introduce you to is a 21-year-old named Alonzo Fulton. He, 2 years ago, found an apartment he could afford in Millvale, and so he moved in. He was feeling really good. He had a job for a year and a half. He was doing well. He was not in trouble. He was being a good guy, and he had his own place. But he was one of the few black people in his neighborhood. And he would call his mother and tell her that when he was walking to his apartment, people would yell racial slurs at him. And his mom told him to ignore them. Nothing will happen, just ignore it, and go on. So he put up with that. And then one night, two young white males started screaming things at him. And then they threatened to kill him. And one of them, in fact, produced a knife and stabbed Alonzo Fulton twice in the stomach. Didn't kill him. He suffered a punctured lung and other injuries. The guy who stabbed him was 17 years old, named Ian McPherson. After this attempt on his life, obviously Alonzo Fulton was hospitalized, and according to his mother, he just spiraled down mentally. He was so enraged. He just couldn't, probably had post-traumatic stress, who knows. He lost his job. He lost his apartment. He lost the life he had been building. Well, Ian McPherson, who stabbed him twice, got sentenced on Friday. Here's what he was sentenced to: 11 and a half to 23 months. 11 and a half to 23 months. And you wonder why black people in this city and county figure that the system doesn't work for them? You tell me. And this is what Alonzo Fulton would say. Well, I'll tell you what he said. His mother was so freaked when this sentence was announced that she could barely, she was out in the hallway crying and screaming. He tried to kill my son, and he gets less time than it took for this to even get to trial. No matter how you look at it, his mother went on. He took my son's life. This doesn't make sense to me. Her son is quoted as saying to her, "Mom, leave it. It's over. This is how life is." Okay. You wonder how young black men get like disaffected? They are told quite clearly, your life doesn't mean pfft. You stop and think about it. Plunging a knife twice into him, walking home to his apartment, and this guy he won't even do 2 years. Alonzo Fulton said, if it were the other way around, I'd still be in jail. He's right. It just shows how the system is. And what he's left with now is no sense of justice, but with even more anger. His mother, meanwhile, says, and she told the judge this before sentencing, "My son is in terrible shape, and I cannot afford counseling that he needs." Tough. The judge, by the way, who was the judge in this case? What genius. Cashman. David Cashman. I gotta take a break. Believe me.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
Here we go. Pittsburgh City Paper's annual preview is available now. Get your black and gold fix from Pittsburgh's arts, entertainment, dining, and sports source in the Burgh. Pittsburgh City Paper. Available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Hello. Well, I saw a story over the weekend that just sums up the paucity of leadership in Washington, D.C., the absolute inability of the people that the geniuses of America, who can't name any of their Supreme Court justices, send to Washington, D.C. to do the people's business and to represent we the people. So we know that there's been gridlock on Capitol Hill. Well, this is another instance of gridlock, but when you hear what it's about, it's unbelievable. You know, we can all identify, I would think, although who am I to say when I find out most of my countrymen cannot identify a single Supreme Court justice, but I think most people, please, dear God, let this be true, can identify the U.S. Capitol building. If they saw a picture of it. What's that? You know, if you show them the White House, they know that. They probably know. Wouldn't they know? And the Capitol? Oh, please. Oh, God. Well, anyway, there it's been. And you know what? Here's what's amazing. You know when the current dome, the building's been added on to a million times. But that dome was built, get this, was finished, because it started in the 1850s. It was finished during the Civil War. And I find that mind-blowing. So the U.S. government was fighting a war for its very survival, and at the same time was able to build in the Capitol, which was sitting right on the cusp of the Confederacy, was able to build this incredible dome. And believe me, if you look closely at it, it is gorgeous. There's so much amazing, I don't know what you call that, all kinds of amazing concrete work, artistic and architectural flourishes. The dome is starting to come apart, guys. And how's that? It's just such a great metaphor. The dome is known to have over 1,000 cracks in it. Water has been seeping in for years now. It's causing some of the beautiful ornamentation to rust. It's not concrete, it's like steel. Or iron, I guess. And the inside of the dome, where there are murals and stuff, those are starting to be damaged as well. The reality is that our U.S. Capitol dome needs extensive renovation. But you could, and here's where, it's the Congress's house, and it's their job to take care of it. But because Congress is a dysfunctional marriage of Republicans and Democrats, they can't. They can't agree. Actually, we know what it won't be a surprise to hear that the Senate has passed legislation to deal with this. And of course, the Republican-controlled House has not. Anyone who owns a house knows that if your roof is leaking, it is unbelievably irresponsible not to fix it. Because if you don't fix that, it results in bigger problems. It doesn't stop. It doesn't mend itself. This is a classic, a stitch in time saves nine. The cost of this is huge at this point. The more it's put off, the more it will cost. But that's what the Republicans are forcing. They're forcing the price of the inevitable fix of that dome. They're forcing it up. The dome was last restored in 1960, and I guess since then it's been, I mean, and then they can't figure. I didn't bring the rest of this story in, dang it. But I had. It's unbelievable. As, Senator Schumer said, hey, we're not talking here about a bridge to nowhere or, something that we shouldn't be able to agree on. We're talking about the nation's house. There's two main, or three, I guess, representing the three, where the three branches of government live. There's a White House, there's a Supreme Court building, and there's the U.S. Capitol. And the dome is leaking. You know what it is? And it's true. The U.S. Capitol is part of the infrastructure of this country. And like the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, anything that has to be cared for by the government through taxation is crumbling because of Republicans. They will not raise revenue to do the things the government is to do, including fixing the leaking roof over their heads. Hey, God, I can think of a really good sign you could send. You could have somebody like Boehner standing up, giving some impassioned speech about Republican values or something, or squeezing government to a point where it's, you can drown it in a bathtub. And wouldn't it be something if the roof over his head finally just collapsed? Because ultimately, God's rules of, I guess, science again, will, with that drip, drip, drip of water, it will manage to take down this huge, huge dome. Another victim of Republicans in charge. Yeah, let's let Romney in the White House and then just stand back. I don't know. All these people have been afraid of driving over bridges. I'm going to join them. Stand back and watch it crumble. Okay, that's my happy hour today. Still lots more to talk about. I didn't even scratch the surface. Oh, darn it, I forgot some stuff here. Tomorrow. There's plenty of time tomorrow. Have a great day. The good news is the Republican convention is not on TV tonight. Whew. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.